Now, the routinization trap, I think, is a very important one. Gutenberg came up with the printing press in 1450. From 1450 to 1500, do you know what they did with this innovation? They printed Latin Bibles. Then somebody said, wow, what if we printed it in German? Because not that many people speak Latin anymore. Maybe more people would get into this religion stuff. Then someone, 20 years after that, said, you know what? We could print other books too. So from the time the thing was invented to the time it actually had the real economic drive that brought in, you know, all the way arguably to the Treaty of Westphalia, there's this lag. The problem is we always tend to apply the technology to do that which we've done in the past, rather than thinking about the technology itself and what it can do for the future. Another example, James Watt comes up with the steam engine. Now when I say steam engine, what do you think? You think locomotive, because the locomotive is what made the local farm, the national farm, hello Industrial Revolution, hello Charles Dickens' Big Smoke, England, right? But look at it. Invented in 1785, 1807, someone came up with the idea of a steamboat, but it wasn't until 1829 that the locomotive was developed. Another one, the moving picture camera. There's some argument over who invented it, but let's give credit to Lumiere. Wikipedia says it was Lumiere. There's a message in there. I didn't bother looking up Britannica. So it was invented in 1895, but you know what they did between 1895 and 1903 with this wonderful new technology? They filmed plays. Then somebody had this really great idea of an innovation for the movie The Great Train Robbery. Potter, I think the guy's name was. You know what the innovation was? Anyone? Any media buffs in the room? It's this really cool thing. It's called a cut. So you can actually film a scene and cut it, and then shrink time or change time, and then put something else up against it. And thus comes Hollywood and Bollywood and Slumdog Millionaire and whatever else you want. But it wasn't until somebody thought differently about applying the technology that the new economic windfall came. We don't have time. We don't have time, right? Growth is going to come from insight. And if we're continuing to do learning that regresses us to the mean of mediocrity to teach silly human beings how to conform to the procedures that we have in place, we're going for denominator management. We're going for cost. And I think it's incumbent on us as learning professionals to go for growth. This is paving cowpaths. Routinization is also called paving cowpaths. I used to live in Dublin, but I'm from Youghal down there. It's 137 miles. How long in the 1970s with my mom smoking in the car, remember she smokes, did it take for me to get from Dublin to Youghal? Shout out. Any from Ireland? 4 hours. 4 hours. About 4 hours and 15 minutes if we stop for a break. Why? This dude, John Loudon McAdam. You know what he came up with? Tar McAdam, Scottish fella. And even though he's Scottish, we said that's not a bad idea, because walking on cowpaths is kind of messy and stinky. So you know what we're going to do? We'll pave the cowpaths. Now so it was a good application of the technology, and it solved a present need. Now you all here in this country looked at that and said, well, that's kind of stupid, right? We need a state highway system that has exits to these towns, because it's possible you might want to get from Dublin to Youghal without actually going through every, one-stop light, as we call it in North Carolina. So let's not pave cowpaths this time. Listen to what these companies have to say and think strategically about how you apply these technologies moving forward. When it comes to this technology, then what we did, and Carl and I are working on a book on this at this point in time, is we started to look at the technology naked and say, what is it that this technology has that differentiates it from anything else? And then use those sensibilities to create much better learning experiences. The first is a sense of self. You actually feel kinship with your avatar. I know you think I'm crazy. The only way that you'll learn that is by actually getting an avatar going in. The second is the death of distance, which means that there's a third place in cyberspace that becomes an environment within which you can operate. So whether you're from India or Ireland, doesn't matter. You're all here in the third place. The next is the power of presence. That's Bono. And you can go talk to Bono and you feel like it is Bono. That sounds crazy to some of you who don't have avatars, but it's true. The sense of space means you can play with size. You can be a molecule, you can be a moon. You don't have to be anthropomorphized to a humanoid form. You can be a letter going through the postal system. There's a lot of ways. If it's important for you to understand workflow or process, you can do that. The capability to co-create. This is fundamentally an environment where people each one teach one. It's very like the Usenets of the software development age. The pervasiveness of practice means that everybody's in there practicing and willing to share how to use the environment. And the enrichment of experience, this is a very interesting story. A friend of mine built out a place, and actually I'll show you this. I want to show you this one place that he built out up here. His wife and he met in a place called the Agora Ballroom in Atlanta. Now, the Agora Ballroom was a rock and roll club, but they've since moved on and they're into ballroom dancing. And his wife is also a programmer. So they built this beautiful facility, and you can see little blue balls and pink balls, and those are called pose balls. And when you click on them, your avatar starts to do things. Remember that other industry, other than gambling? That's where the technology came from. These pose balls are more for tangos and whatever other, I don't know much about ballroom dancing. But the idea here is you come in, and down on the bottom right, you have to have a tux to get in. So you go to the changing room, and then you can go in, you can order a drink at the bar. If you go onto one of these circles and you click it, you're dancing with your partner. So here, my partner and I were in a big hurry, I think, or there we go, look at that. So each circle has a certain kind of dance. Now also in the room, you actually can have let me turn that off, I'm getting dizzy. You can have a video of what the steps are to actually do the dance if you were into doing it. So one of his clients came up and said, "Hey, I'd like to rent this place, but I want it just for us, just for 2 people. Can I do that?" And my friend said, "Sure." And he's got about 17,000 people coming through this thing a month at this point in time. I'm like, "Chris, man, you could charge $1 a person and not have to work at IBM anymore." It's like, "Nah, I'm just into the experimentation of it." So anyway, he closed, and also, can you pipe in the song "Lady in Red," right? So the day comes, he shows up with his wife, and she's clearly a newbie. She doesn't really know how to navigate, but she's got a gorgeous red dress on, right? So either he's built this dress in Second Life, or he's shucked out a little bit of money to get it. So they tootle on up to this floor, and they start doing their dance. They're there for an hour, and 5 minutes left to go. He looks over to Chris and gives a nod, puts on Lady in Red. They have their dance. She comes up to him afterwards and gives him a big hug and said, "Thank you so much. That was fantastic. I really enjoyed that." Next day, he gets an email. And in the email is the woman writing, saying, "Thank you so much. That was the greatest experience. I haven't danced with my husband since our wedding because she was in a car accident." So isn't that cool? That's the enrichment of experience. What can you do to create experiences like that for your students? Because you know what? She's not going to forget that. Thank you.